I suppose you were mentioning Tyrone there. They obviously took on Kerry. Like, I suppose we kind of have to run through that game. I mean, that was some performance altogether by Kerry, like racking up a total of 615 to 114. Clifford on the score sheet again with goals. Gavin White lobbing the goalkeeper from like 30 to 40 yards. I mean, it was, I suppose as a Dublin fan, it was worrying in many ways, but at the same time, as a neutral fan, it was great to watch.
Yeah, that forward line is absolutely incredible. Like, well, Tyrone didn't show up, and we mentioned already they're in transition. Like, Kerry were just ruthless, absolutely ruthless. Like, I don't think Dublin would have put up a score line of 615. That's not to say Dublin wouldn't beat Kerry, but it's just the way Kerry play those forwards. They just have a little bit more firepower in that sense, where they can turn a match like that and turn it into a hammering or a drubbing like they have. 615 is an absolutely incredible score. Like, I want to talk a bit about like the role of David Clifford in that Kerry forward line, because obviously he's the main man. He's always going to probably score the most, particularly he's on freeze, but he'll always produce points, probably get a goal as well. But I thought like the weekend was a template with how the rest of the year will turn out. Like, I think David Clifford, he's always the target for Kerry's first ball. Is kick the ball into David Clifford and he'll win the ball out in front. But what he's doing a lot more this year, well, I seem to think I noticed a lot more. He's popping it off. And what he was always involved like that, it seems to be like a conscious effort. He's going to take so much attention from opposing defenders, and he's just going to lay it off. Like, I think, like, as well as it was 1-6 or whatever he scored, he had he had a couple of assists to set up the goals. He was always setting up a point there. He'd either be the last hand pass, he had a flick kick towards the end as well to set up a point. He's just always seems to, like, if you had the stats on, which is another thing GA should be doing, these stats on assists or even a pre-assist, like David Clifford's always there in the Kerry. So even if you look at a game and you're like, oh, I don't know how well Clifford played today, he didn't get that many scores, it's the amount of role he's not only taking the defender's attention away, but he's setting up so many scores for that Kerry forward line. And you saw Paul Gainey shine a little bit today at number 12, or sorry, at the weekend at number 12. They've just so many options. Sean O'Shea, it's pretty terrifying, and I think that that's the way they'll play against like the likes of, you know, inferior opposition now. It's just blitz attack, and they should have no problem beating any team in the country until they get to that All-Ireland final, which I think is going to be pretty. I think we're all building towards Dublin Kerry All-Ireland final. I can't see it being any other two teams. That's when obviously the real test will be, and will they adapt and maybe go a little bit more defensive, which obviously everyone wants them to go blitz attack against the Dublin, but you know, they need to be solid at the back as well, because Dublin could burn them alive as well. So it's just in terms of like, that was like, you know, an exemplary performance, but did we learn probably anything that you can take in the Dublin game? Probably not, because Kerry will try and hold something back for that Dublin game. But it just shows you how far ahead Kerry have now become. Like, they are the proper second best team in the country, far clear of like Donegal, Tyrone. They've hammered Galway as well, and yeah, I wasn't surprised by it, but like, it was just a joy to watch, and it's just a reminder to Dublin that this Kerry team is coming, and they're going to give them a real challenge if they get to that All-Ireland final. Like.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make about Clifford, all right, with the fact that he does draw a lot of attention away from some of the other forwards, and it's definitely true. Like, when you look at the space that it creates for Sean O'Shea, who I think is, like, on his day, like, he's up there as one of the best players in the country, in my opinion. Like, he's breathtaking to watch. He covers so much ground all around the pitch, and then he's still adding points, assists, goals. Like, he's doing pretty much everything. And it's a similar thing, I think, with Con O'Callaghan in some ways as well. Like, I remember when he first burst onto the scene, and teams were trying to double up on him, and then it would create space for Noel Scully if he was playing, or Dean Rock and some of the other Dublin lads. So, like, where would you put Kerry now? Do you think they can beat the Dubs? Do you think they can win the All Ireland? Is this finally the time where it all clicks together, or could they be caught again? Because that's the thing with Kerry. It's like you bigged them up. They were great in the league last year, and then they were caught. But I mean, surely they've got to make a final now, and at least put it up to the Dubs if it is Dublin in the final.
If Kerry don't get to this year's All-Ireland final and they get caught by someone, like, it'll be an absolute, like, how like, I think I spoke to you about this before, but the Cork game is still it's absolutely hilarious how that happened. I don't think they'll get caught, because they've shown the template, as I was saying there. Tyrone win, Galway win. This is how you beat a team that you're better than. You beat them by blitz attack. You have the best, probably the best six forwards in the country, maybe Dublin aside, to score goals like that. 6-15, you're scoring against Tyrone, and I almost felt like they were kind of holding off a bit then towards the end. You know what I mean? So I cannot see them getting caught. It just can't happen again. They're just so, if I had that warning last year, the performances they put in the league is the template they now should bring into the Munster games. And then they're in an All-Ireland semi-final, and then the final with Dublin. And then from there, if they want to play a little bit differently with Dublin, maybe go defensive for 10 minutes in the game. We can get to all that when you're previewing an Ireland final, but they've got to just play like they did against Tyrone. It's very simple, and they'll beat every team that they'll come up against. So I definitely don't think they'll get caught. Will they beat Dublin in an Ireland final? I think they could. I think they definitely could, because they probably had, like, since that 2019 All Ireland final, they've had, like, well, obviously they were preparing for it last year and it didn't happen. So they've had the guts of 2 years to come up with some sort of template to beat Dublin, where they can combine what they showed against Tyrone there, but also be able to, I don't know, in 10, 15 minutes during a game, batten down the hatches and try to get some sort of defensive system without giving Dublin the ball for 3 or 4 minutes as they work a score, which obviously they can do against a blanket defense. So it's just the same question. Like, if you're analyzing Kerry, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, you'd say the same. They have the forwards. Is their defense good enough to beat Dublin in Croke Park? It's probably, it'll be the Acetet this year, but I definitely think they have a right chance of beating them. Definitely. It's just because it's the fate you put in, that what sort of are they going to get that balance right against Dublin? So they should abandon any sort of defensive system against every other team. Just go out and beat them properly. But for Dublin, you've got to have that balance somewhere. So it'll be very interesting. But yeah, they can 100% beat Dublin. I think I'd have them a lot closer in terms of, like, I think that, like, Dublin would still be heavy favourites, but I'd really fancy Kerry to give them a right go. Not too dissimilar between the 2019, finals. And if you look at that replay first half, like, I like Owen Merchant took like 13 steps in that All-Ireland final replay. If he doesn't score that goal, it's going to be a 50-50 game throughout. I think that goal just kills Kerry's challenge off straight away. That 10-all in the first half and that All-Ireland final replay shows how well those teams are matched. And I think that it'll be a very similar game where it'll just be a shootout and the best team will win on the day. But yeah, they definitely can beat Dublin 100%. And Dublin should be fairly worried that, unfortunately for them, this year they will come up against Kerry, because I just cannot see them losing to. And if they lose, like, again, fair, like, they've no excuse. They little excuse last year, but they've no excuse this year.
Yeah, because obviously, like, if Kerry do come through Munster, they'll play the Ulster champions, and whether that is Tyrone or Donegal, like, you'd have to fancy Kerry. Like, maybe if they were going up against Mayo, you feel like maybe Mayo are one team that could potentially just do Kerry, but you would to be fair, you'd probably feel Kerry